Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 7. Appreciate you guys listening. Just finished night practice. It's 9:45 p.m. on Monday night. Full disclosure, I recorded about 20 minutes of talking before a little Q&A that we're going to get to later in this podcast. Recorded that earlier today, but given the news of Monday afternoon, felt like it would be worthwhile to kind of revisit things and really start with the news and then go back to a little bit of what I saw Saturday against the Raiders in the preseason game, and then look forward a little bit to joint practices. And obviously, given the news, those joint practices are a little bit up in the air in terms of what we'll look for and what we'll see. But we'll get into that, and then got a bunch of you guys' questions via Twitter that I will discuss later, probably in the back half of the episode. So appreciate you guys listening. Like I said, as always, like and subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. It really does help us out. I still am not totally sure how, but I promise it does. And so we'd really be appreciative. So the news, I'll just explain kind of what happened from the media aspect of this afternoon. It was a night practice, like I mentioned. So the media availability was 6 o'clock, and typically we arrive a little bit earlier as the fans are filtering in. And Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, does a press conference. That's usually how this thing goes. And that's how it was planned on Monday afternoon. So I drove out there and went through traffic out to get out to the TCO Performance Center, get out there, and he does his press conference out near the practice fields. There were sprinklers. There was no one out there, pretty quiet. Truth be told, didn't expect much to come out of that. I thought Kevin would rehash the game a little bit, talk about some specific players, which he did. But I mean, from the get-go of the press conference, he thanked us for being out there. He talked about how excited he was for the night practice. And he said, I want to give you guys an update, and went straight into saying that JJ McCarthy, the Vikings rookie quarterback who they picked 10th in the draft, who looked really good on Saturday, came in Monday and kind of reported a little bit of knee soreness. And Kevin O'Connell did not really expound. He said that JJ would probably be undergoing some tests, and that they would update us in the media as soon as they had kind of a response and a breakdown and some news to report on that. So he was asked a follow-up immediately, like, do you expect this to be anything more than routine soreness? And Kevin said at the time, he said, and I quote, he said, at this time, no, I don't, but we want to make sure we're smart with everything. So, frankly, it was kind of out of nowhere. Did not expect that to be the case, given JJ played 30 reps. His last throw was a touchdown pass to Trent Sherfield on a long pass toward the end zone, and kind of a blown coverage that was actually the result of a pretty good play design by the Vikings. So, it's the immediate aftermath is, man, you wonder how this occurred. What goes through my mind is I know a little bit. I'm not from Minnesota. I haven't experienced everything, but I know a little of the history. And you just hope that this does not rise anywhere remotely close at all whatsoever to the level of some situation in the past from a Teddy Bridgewater, from a Sam Bradford. Like, obviously those, I imagine for you guys as fans, that type of stuff comes to your mind. And so you read the tweets of this news or you hear it, and it's like, your heart drops, your stomach feels queasy. Like, I cannot imagine being a fan in this circumstance. I only know for myself as a media member, you're a reporter, you're objective all the time. But just given how much positivity has been around this team in the last, specifically a couple of days, but really going back a couple of weeks now with how the quarterbacks have looked, brutal news. When I first heard it, you never want to be like doomsday guy, but I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a Viking staffer, and we were talking about this was right after the Mekhi Blackmon ACL tear. And by no means am I comparing these situations because, I mean, really anything about JJ's injury, I would be totally speculating at this point. But I'll never forget that conversation. It was like, man, you just hope this isn't one of those years. And I mean, there have been just a lot of circumstances. At times, some really high highs in terms of the draft and what was accomplished and the extensions with Justin and Christian Darrisaw. But I mean, that comment was kind of going through my head Monday. So we'll see. The immediate question for me is will he make the trip to Cleveland for joint practices? And Kevin O'Connell was asked that, and he was not in a position to give an answer one way or another. But the way they have responded to injuries of late, specifically TJ Hawkinson's, I mean, they have been very precautious with all these, because I think, you know, and I say this without having heard this from anybody, but the NFL and injuries in the NFL, you know, there's a real important need for the team to develop trust from the players and the training staff to develop trust from the players, and trust in the form of these guys want my best interest, not the best interest for the team and the immediacy. And so to me, as I think about this, would you rather have JJ go in for these really important reps that were going to be in Cleveland, or if you're taking the long-term view as they have been the entire time, would you rather him rest, make sure we're totally good to go, allow Sam Darnold to get the reps? Nick Mullins will get some reps, which is good in the event of him at all being needed over the course of the season. Like, that to me probably makes sense. I'm not reporting that that's happening. I truly don't know as you guys are listening to this, and hopefully, and it's possible that by Monday afternoon, that by Monday morning, whenever you guys listen to this, it's possible that news has surfaced that we all know. But I think, just from my standpoint, as I speak about this right now, and not I don't record a podcast at every hour of the day, I would say, that's just how I feel about it. And it is, I mean, I am disappointed. I will be in Cleveland for joint practices. I part of the reason I wanted to go, and part of the reason I think The Athletic is sending me, is because of what we look forward to seeing from JJ McCarthy. So to not have him out there and not have him face off in more reps with the number ones, which he was probably going to get, which Kevin O'Connell even talked about Monday, it would be a shame. But again, as I've talked about, and I was asked later a question about JJ McCarthy's long-term potential, when he starts, when he doesn't. And that question will obviously be affected by the extent of this injury. It might not be affected at all. But I talked about the long-term approach that they've taken from the get-go. And I think that applies to a situation like this. Like, he's proven a lot thus far. He really has. I know it's only been 3 weeks of practice, not a ton of physicality, one preseason game. But in terms of just the way he's handled everything, you could tell how much respect he'd garnered, not only from the staff, not only from the fan base, but the players inside the locker room. So just no need to rush it. And so that's what I'd say. And I'll probably leave it at that for now, because, again, by the time you listen to this, the results of whatever testing might be done, hopefully are out there. And I mean, you hope, just as a human being and how much I've enjoyed watching this guy, that it is all positive. I'll talk a little bit about Saturday's game. I had a couple thoughts that I recorded earlier. And I mean, I really started with, like, how beautiful of a day that was. I went on a run earlier that morning. That was Saturday morning. And it was just, like, perfect football weather. Like, it was absolutely phenomenal. And I had sent a text, actually, to JJ's dad, Jim, who I met with and spent time with in Chicago. And he responded, like, you know, we're just so excited to be here. No matter what happens, just so excited to see JJ kind of live out his dream. Like, that was the text I got. And then for him to respond the way he did from that interception, just so much to like. The poise, his ability to rip the ball over the middle. This was the stuff that we've seen at training camp for weeks. It's what we've written about. It's why when you saw some aggregation reports about JJ struggling, they're like, no. Like, yeah, he had a little down practice, but in terms of the way he'd managed things, it was exactly what we saw Saturday. I mean, I was really impressed by one specific throw he made taking a hit in the pocket and finding Nick Muse, the tight end, over the middle, put the ball right on his face mask. That's exactly what you want. He got hit pretty good on that play. So in terms of like wondering when the injury might have occurred, I mean, that one definitely popped in my head. There was obviously the spin out scramble where he dove, that one as well. So, I mean, who knows, but just overall the interception, could he have been earlier on the pass? Yes. But to me, that was the perfect representation of what Kevin O'Connell talked about from the get-go. We want him to learn to have some trial and error. Like JJ McCarthy learned from that play that if you feel pressure internally and you step outside and scroll and scramble a little bit out to the right and you toss a pass that is more of a direct line shot and maybe not like a 9-iron, a little up and over against a corner like Jack Jones, he's probably going to get you. And that's a great learning experience, in my opinion, that a guy of JJ's age can receive. And I might talk about this a little later, but the thing really for me that just stood out is I remember walking in my car after, I'm thinking, he's 21 years old. He turned 21 in January, so he's really like just halfway toward 22. And he looked very polished. I mean, you've heard probably rave review. If you've followed the NFL, you've heard rave reviews of Jaden Daniels' first preseason game, of Michael Penix's first preseason game. These guys are 3, 4, 5 years older than JJ McCarthy. And so I was walking in my car and I'm thinking like, man, like for him to look as efficient as he did, as comfortable as he did, for him in the locker room after the game to say after the pick, he thought through his head, what an opportunity this is going to be, just like poised beyond his years. If I was nitpicking anything, it would be that there were a couple times with his footwork where, it was like a 5-step drop and then his feet would come together. And I'm by no means a elite quarterback mind, but I've watched a lot. I've talked to a lot of people about kind of what you look for. I've studied a lot of film. So again, I wouldn't take this for everything. And I think it's important for me to admit like that I didn't play the position. I don't have the expertise, but you do everything in my role to try, to watch, to talk, to listen. And sometimes in some of these deeper drops, he would bring his feet together. They call it kind of heel clicking. If you go back, it's kind of like crow hopping a little bit. And so there were a couple times where he did that, where you felt like if he kept his base that he took in his original drop, he would probably be a little bit earlier on some of the throws. So I say that all to say he feathered the ball beautifully to his left on a crossing route to Tristan Jackson. He threw a perfect go ball to his left to Tristan Jackson. Like, I am really nitpicking with that. It was just something that stood out to me. And it's a perfect segue for me because as much as we've talked about JJ McCarthy, rightfully for how good he's looked, I really thought Sam Darnold's 8 passes and very brief possession Saturday was really impressive from a technical standpoint. He was 4 for 8, but I would say 2 of his passes were pretty much drops. One was Ty Chandler in the flat. I don't know how he dropped that pass. It ricocheted off his body absolutely absurdly. The other one was on 4th and 2 in the red zone. They went for it, and he really hit Jalen Naylor in the hands. Just watching the all-22 back, that could have been a catchable ball. You'd probably expect Jalen to make that catch, even though it was good coverage, I believe, by Marcus Epps on the play. So those plays, the throw over to get open over the linebacker. I talked about the 9-iron earlier. It was kind of like a cut down pitching wedge, to use the golf analogy. That was a really impressive throw over Spillane to Jalen Naylor, and with incredible anticipation, which means a throw at a point at which the receiver is not even out of his break. And there was that one throw where it was as good of an anticipation as you're probably going to see. I just thought all in all, for as much as we talked about JJ's performance, Sam probably didn't get enough due for what he navigated, not to mention the fact that the headsets weren't even working. Kevin O'Connell also admitted that he called a play that wasn't even on the play sheet. So just to be as fluid as Sam seemed to, I thought that was really encouraging, not surprising. I've talked for a long time. I was on the fan-hosted Paul Allen show here in Minneapolis and said that I thought Sam would have had the chance to be really effective with this staff in this system. and with these skill players. So just something really good to see. A couple more quick ones. I laughed. I tweeted a picture of Brian Flores lining up 9 guys on the line of scrimmage, and I put a little Engage 8 photo for the Madden fans out there, but just hilarious. Like, Brian Flores lining up 9 guys on the line of scrimmage. I was trying to think, like, what is an analogy for this? And I'll probably go to the ping pong well, like, a lot, because I love it, and you guys are like, this is absurd. This guy's ridiculous. And I absolutely am. But, like, when I play, I love ping pong. Got a great forehand. My friends can attest. I can rip it. Like, I really can. The backhand is the bane of my existence, but I really can rip a forehand. And the 2 guys I've always loved, some of my best friends, Sam and Jonah. I've played them growing up, played them in college, ping pong. A lot of ping pong was played. I was on a state championship ping pong winning team. I mean, it's as embarrassing of a comment I could probably make, but you guys are here for a reason. If you made it this far, you kind of deserve these things. And when I would play these 2 guys, you know how, and you guys know, you're playing ping pong, you warm up a little bit. How could you not? You got to get the feel. You got to get the forehand timed up, you know. And those 2 guys would always, like, we're just warming up, and they'd win the warm up. And I'm like, guys, this isn't, like, we're just supposed to just be hitting back and forth to get a rhythm. This is not how it's supposed to go. And it was just winners nonstop. It's like, it's not fun. I'm just warming up. And that's like Brian Flores, both in training camp against his own offense in the Vikings, and then also against the Raiders. It's like, he's running stunts with Levi Drake Rodriguez and Jalen Redmond. It's just diabolical. But it maniac stuff. But you got to absolutely love it. So that's what I'd say. Dallas Turner, I'll give him a quick shout out. Had looked forward to seeing him, in game, not against Christian Darrisaw, and the speed showed up. I mean, Andres Pete and the other tackles he was going against, just not really indicative. But look, like, Dallas Turner, the athleticism is never going to be his ability to bend, the speed, just exceptional skill set. If anything, for me, that's something I'll continue to watch is the size, the overall physicality. That's kind of what will be on my mind. And then I'm watching those guard spots, like, into the joint practices. If JJ's not there, I will be paying very close attention to both the run game and the guard spots. I thought originally, Ed Ingram really struggled, and there was a turnstile going up against Christian Wilkins, where he just got exposed, and Ed Ingram did. And I thought, Blake Brandel had a pretty good afternoon, but rewatching the tape, Blake in the run game left a lot to be desired too. So that is what I'm watching. That'll do it for the intro. We'll see. Like I said, by the time you listen to this, there might be an update on JJ McCarthy, and hopefully it's a positive one. But in the meantime, we're going to get to the questions. Appreciate you guys listening as always. Like and subscribe on YouTube. That button's right there. On Spotify and Apple, I've got no idea how you do it, but if you did it, we'd be very appreciative. So, like I said, thank you guys for listening. Hope kind of the news that came out of nowhere for all of us ends up the way that I think everybody would want it. So appreciate you guys listening, like I said, for the 4th time, and we'll hop into your questions. All right, the question portion of the podcast. I did not script these. I did script one question, so we'll get into that soon. But the question portion, I don't. My answers are just top of mind. I'm gonna give you the Twitter handle that these questions came from. If you missed out, follow us at Alec Lewis Show on Twitter next time we do one of these, and we'll hop in and get your questions. At PA on the mic, you might have heard of him. His name is Paul Allen. He's been a guest on the Alec Lewis Show. Are we back? Oh, we're back. And this has become, you don't kind of structure these things, okay? Like sometimes these sayings just happen. You stick with them. We're back is one of them. We are back. The Vikings are back. We're back on the air. You guys are like, what the hell? But if you follow my Twitter, I've said it about 1,700 times. I probably need to stop, but I can't. So anyway, the next question comes from, let's see here. I'm picking out a random. The next question comes from get_quacking. What is your favorite sauce? I mean, what a good question. I think my favorite sauce is cane sauce. It is, I don't know what they put in that. I'm sure I could look up a recipe and like make it, but it is a special concoction of something. I don't know if we're doing ketchup, mayo, Worcestershire. I don't know. I am a food guy. If you guys ask me favorite restaurants in Minneapolis, we'd be here all afternoon. But cane sauce is exceptional. Honorary mention for sauce. I mean, I'm a big ranch guy. So like the best ranch that you can find. I don't know what, I'd actually be curious what you guys think is the best ranch in Minneapolis. I know, there is Monte Carlo has a great ranch for their wings. There is also, I'm usually a ranch guy, but the Runyon's blue cheese to me is just absolutely divine. So that is that is what I say. We're gonna hit the Viking stuff, but I'm enjoying the non-football things because my whole life has become football, and it's fun to do something different. At VikesVV, Vikes Verified, they do a great job and aggregate stuff all the time, which is totally fine to me because fans like their information wherever it comes from. Craft brew of choice, locally, it's probably Castle Danger Cream Ale. Love it. I don't know, like I tried it early on when I got to Minnesota, and that's what I'd say. I did love when I was in Kansas City. Boulevard Brewing has a great beer. A Boulevard Tank 7 is really good. But I'm also kind of become a Mick Golden guy, which is, it's not craft brew in the slightest. Like you guys are probably laughing, but it's Mick Golden's, if they go down easy. And sometimes you need that after 7 quarterbacks play in a season, including a rookie from BYU sometimes. Anyway, next up, is 50 the best defensive tackle number? Skullchester. Defensive tackle number. I kind of like 88 or 99 or 55. I don't know what it is. I like those dual, it's like the alliteration number form. I for some reason I like those. Like I think Zadarius Smith was 55. I like that. Daniil was 99. Like that was badass. Now I know you said defensive tackle, but like it's the same thing. Defensive line, edge rusher, defensive tackle. I'm placing it all together, Chester. So I apologize. I hope that answers your question, but that's where I'm going. Tim Siegley, who is a phenomenal human being, First Resource Bank locally. Please check that out. They do a great job, and that is not an ad. Even though First Resource is it's a great entity. If you're a local person, I would check them out. That's what I would say. He asked, what do you think the long-term plan is for Nick Mullins? I think the long-term plan is just, he's almost like insurance. I mean, Tim, you're a banker. You know more about this world than I do in terms of making sure your assets are protected. But yeah, Nick Mullins, I with the way that JJ McCarthy looked Saturday, assuming that he continues to progress and pick up the offense seamlessly, it's hard to fathom that at some point, if Sam Darnold were the starter and he were to go down, that ultimately Nick would kind of assume the position rather than JJ. He's kind of, to me, more of an emergency guy that you trust to come in and be able to run the offense. Now, is it going to run it perfectly? Probably not, because as we saw last year, pretty turnover-laden guy, but has the accuracy and the ability and the and the crazy gene willingness to push that you would like in this system. But I mean, like, Nick is from Birmingham, Alabama. He's from Spain Park, really close to me. He's a great guy, really good family. Has been awesome to me since I got here. So I'm always hoping the best for him. I know we cover these guys. You're objective. I totally get it. But Nick's one of those guys that there's a reason that when Kevin O'Connell talks about him as he does in certain press conferences, he talks about him the way he does, because Nick, he really he's everything you want in terms of adding to your quarterback room. So that's what I'd say. I set up this question, okay, and it was asked twice. Skull Daddy at Connor LC247 asked me, how good is Chris Stapleton? And then that question was also asked by Minnesota Tim 1, who has his own podcast. Random question for you, how good is Chris Stapleton? All right. So You guys asked, I think on the first time we did this, like, what are you listening to? What's the song of the summer? And I gave you Zach Bryan. And I love Zach Bryan. He is, and I'm a big country guy. As you either listening know or don't know, I'll tell you. I'm from Alabama, so I grew up not on a farm in a very suburban place in Alabama. So as fun as it is to joke about me growing up on a farm with horses and cows and sheep and or sheep on farm, I don't even know, pigs on farm. That's not really me, but I love country music at certain times. On the lake, I love country music. Playing golf, I love country music. Walking around the North Loop in an incredible 74-degree weather like I may or may not have done right before this show. I love country music. And Chris Stapleton, I I played golf this past weekend out about 20 minutes out of the city. I can't even remember. Hollow something, Fox Hollow maybe. It was a nice public course, very enjoyable. And we were paired with this random, and he was a construction guy, older looking gentleman, didn't think he had an ear for music, an eye for music. And he's playing this playlist, and it was just Stapleton nonstop. And I've loved Chris for a long time. He does the Monday Night Football intro, as you guys probably know. But as he kept playing these songs, Without Your Love, Parachute, Cold, I'm like sitting there like, damn, I got to put this stuff on soon. So that has been, it has occupied my ears from the time I got off that golf course on Sunday morning. So yeah, I mean, this guy, if you are country, I mean, the guitar, I mean, he can hit the notes. Like if I could buy stock in Stapleton, speaking of assets and money earlier, I would do it. If this guy comes to Minneapolis, somebody listen to this, get me there. I'll go with you. I'll go with someone you know. Whatever I got to do to be in that building, to listen to that guy do his thing, I am all in. So that's a lot, and not a lot of Vikings. But you asked, may or may not be have set that up. But no, I appreciate you guys following suit on I just had to talk about him. It's been on my mind way too much. Carl Johnson, Carl from Lake Elmo, wherever the hell that is. It's got to be a thing, but I don't know anything about Minneapolis City. So what's the music sample at the start of the infamous Alec Lewis show? First, infamous, I think, means like badly famous, or like you're famous for a wrong reason. So that totally jives with how I'm sure this show is going. The intro I found it on some random website, but I kind of like when I work out, I want something that's kind of getting me ready when I'm getting ready for a show. When I listen to Bill Simmons, I like the Pearl Jam intro. So I don't even know the band. I really don't even know, but I like it. So yeah, if any of you guys are musicians and you've got music you want me to play, I'd be all ears for that. So just hit me up. All right, we're going to get into some of the Viking stuff. I know I got Nick Mullins, but I'm going to get into a little bit more of the relevant conversation. Sam Olson, who's always following and reading and listening, I appreciate him. Matchups you're looking forward to at joint practices with Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, number one is Christian Darrisaw against Myles Garrett, or Brian O'Neill against Myles Garrett. I've never seen Myles Garrett in person. I've watched him going back to his days at Texas A&M. This guy is otherworldly just to see on TV. So to see him in person going up against the Vikings tackles, specifically the two that the Vikings have, I am stoked for that, especially Darrisaw. I mean, you're talking about, like, I'm thinking it's like the mountain in Game of Thrones going against his brother. Like, this is mano a mano, as good as it gets. So that's where I'd start. And then the cornerbacks, Martin Emerson, Denzel Ward against Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, like those guys in man coverage, which Cleveland will play. That'll be exceptional and really fun to watch. I think I want to see the Vikings edge rushers, specifically Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. They didn't do a ton. Actually, they did not play either one of them Saturday. So to see them against the Browns offensive line, I think that'll be pretty enjoyable. But that's where I'd start. I will have most of my eyes the first day at least on the quarterbacks and just see how that goes. I think that's what you guys want to know. And if there's anything else you're like, you look for that, let me know about that. Let me know on Twitter or in the comments on YouTube, what have you. I'm all ears. Real bossy _ Reddick to the Vikings. Let Kwesi cook more. I don't think that's going to happen. I will say I do think there was interest in Hassan Reddick in some capacity going back to the combine. I remember being told that. There was a little bit of talk, but ultimately the Vikings signed Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, and then traded what seemed to be 19 picks for Dallas Turner. So at that position, that's just not the priority right now. I think it's cornerback and the interior of the defensive line probably, and then potentially depth at receiver. But the way Jalen Naylor's looked, maybe that spot has kind of diminished a little bit in terms of the need for it. Purple Persuasion, who aggregates everything I write and say, and again, I've already talked about it earlier in the show. I don't mind, like, it's people follow these accounts. They enjoy getting the engagement that they do. I don't have a problem with it. I just continue to do the work, and hopefully that pays dividends ultimately down the line. But you've been pretty adamant that JJ isn't going to start week 1. When do you think he will start? Your life depends on an accurate guess. I hope not. I hope, because I want to keep listening to Chris Stapleton. Okay. Like that's really it. I'd say I've been adamant because the Vikings from the get-go have talked about taking this thing long-term. And I also think they signed Sam Darnold for a reason. Like, to me, there is a world in which, I'm not saying this is going to happen. Okay. So don't aggregate this, please. There is maybe you will. There is a world in which Sam Darnold can produce at a level that is reminiscent in some capacity of Kirk Cousins. And I think that's why you build the roster the way you do and pay players like Justin Jefferson the way you do, is because you think that can ultimately elevate the quarterback to a baseline level. And so that's what I'd say. And one preseason game just doesn't move me off that initial long term. I think sometimes in life, and I've read books on sample size and how kind of the psychology of things works. Sometimes in life, the recency bias can really creep in and make you make a decision or a prediction in a way that kind of removes what you've known for weeks on end. And so I try to guard against that often. It's just like Bo Richter, who a couple of people asked me about, the edge rusher. Looked great Saturday, was so active, but I need to see it over a span of time. And he was a little hurt in the spring, so that affected things. But maybe he continues to flash. Maybe he's sacking Deshaun Watson in joint practices constantly, and Bo Richter's on my 53. But the same goes for JJ in starting week 1. It just, for me, it's going to take a long period of continued and amplified success. I wrote this. I do think JJ will get more reps with the ones, and that will go a long way towards the ultimate evaluation. But I think it's fair to say that, after week 5, they go to London. There's a bye week. That would be a transition point, maybe even later on. After the Thursday night game in Los Angeles, I think that's somewhat of a transition point. But if it's going to be hard if Sam Darnold starts the season and is blowing things out of the water to move off of him. Like, that would just be doing a disservice to the guy and to the team. And so ultimately, to me, if you're committing to Sam Darnold as your starting quarterback week 1, you're committing to him and probably not ready to just pull the plug, especially against some really tough defenses that they face early on in San Francisco and the Jets and some of these defenses down the line. So I'd probably say after the bye week, maybe even after the Rams game, like that to me is just more likely. And then if Sam Darnold's performing well, all bets are kind of off. So that's what I'd say. And I appreciate the question. It's something that we will monitor on a daily basis, but I lean towards what I've heard in terms of their plan from the get-go. A few more here before I absolutely run out of gas. How many players, Charlie Mullins asked, how many players, if any, do you think will be extended before the start of the regular season? Great question. I'd put the over-under at maybe 1.5. Maybe that's high, maybe that's low. But I think there are some candidates in play, like your Cam Bynums, your Harrison Phillips, even potentially your Metellises. I think those guys are probably in play in that regard. That's what I'd say. 1.5, maybe it should just be a half. But those guys, I think, would want to stay here. Like, I had a conversation with Brian O'Neill the other day, and we were talking about Kevin O'Connell, and he said, one thing I don't think is talked about enough is how much what the culture that he's instilled here has made players want to stay here and not even want to test free agency because they are so comfortable with this environment. And it's not just Kevin. It goes to the training staff. It goes to nutrition. It goes to the facilities and all that. But to me, it was an important comment made by Brian O'Neill. And so I'd say I think about Cam Bynum and Harrison Phillips as kind of top of the line of guys who would probably want an extension and who the Vikings could probably get at a level that makes sense. So that's where I'd go with that. I'll do one more Vikings and then rattle off a couple fun ones. Let's see here. Oh boy. Question for the mailbag from Big Mike Dubs 34, Taste Fairy apologist guy. He's listening and reading all the time, so I appreciate him. Does Levi Drake Rodriguez make the final 53? It'll be tight, is what I think. I mean, he was a 7th round pick for a reason. He's a defensive tackle from Southwest Assembly of God and Texas A&M Commerce, and so it's hard when you're taking a guy from those situations and placing him in this type of competitive environment. It's hard to get a real feel for what he's capable of, which is in part why I think you've seen him with the ones, because Brian Flores and the defensive staff and the scouting staff is probably like, we got to see this guy against better competition to see how far he maybe has to go. On Saturday, you guys probably watch, and so you know that often Levi Drake was mixed in a third down and kind of role on the interior. And so he wasn't an early down run stopping guy. It was more, can he provide wiggle on pass rushing downs? There was one really heads up pass tip that I thought shows kind of a football intelligence aspect to him that is important. And it's something I want to point out in a way. A lot of their recent draft picks, it feels like to me, and I'm talking 23 and even a little bit last year with the Mekhi Blackmans, there is a football aptitude that I'm not sure was totally put into from an evaluation standpoint in 2022. And I've thought a lot about it with the cornerback misses in general over the years, but that the ball skills, when you see a Dwight McGlothern and Brian Flores says he had great ball skills, so we prioritize him, that to me is kind of a shift, and it's something I've had my eye on and I wanted to point out. But Levi Drake, again, to me it's going to be tight because you have the group of, do we keep 6 receivers with Trent Sherfield, Tristan Jackson, or an external addition? Do we keep 4 linebackers with Brian Asamoah? Do we keep 10 offensive linemen with Michael Juergens and Walter Rouse? They are tough questions, and I think with the draft misses over the first year of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's time, as much as they will never admit it, there's going to want to be attention paid and opportunities given to draft picks to develop, to kind of have wins in your hat and feathers in your cap, if that makes sense. So that's what I'd say. Some fun ones to end it. David Linder, FF Statman, what is your favorite sub at Jersey Mike's, and have you tried the pepper relish? Look, you can order me number 13, number 5, number 2. I will eat it. You can order me the turkey club with bacon. I'll eat it, and I love it. The hot subs, I love those too, but I haven't been getting a ton of those because I can't go order a hot Jersey Mike's sub, steak and peppers, and then just go sweat it out on the practice field, or else I'm going to be a pool that you're going to be. Alec Lewis, local reporter, has become pool of meat and grease out at Vikings practice facility. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. So, and no, I haven't tried the pepper relish, but your mention of that will make me do that. I like hot stuff. Like I said, I'm kind of a foodie. So that's a good question. Jersey Mike's is still not paid. It's not a paid ad, and we got to get that fixed. I want you guys, if you made it all the way, first, props to you guys. And second, hit up Jersey Mike's, tag the show, tell them we want to see, help me out. Come on. I'm not a big ego guy. I don't really want to do that, even though I have a podcast called the Alec Lewis Show. So maybe I am just a gigantic ego guy masquerading as a non-ego person. Stuff I've got to probably sort out on my own. And then the last one, at Ethan Goose, do you miss the K? He's talking about Kauffman Stadium. For those who know, I covered the Kansas City Royals for 3 years. And it's funny, we're recording this on Monday as the Royals are back. They're actually in Minnesota playing the Twins. And I went for a haircut, as you guys can probably see, on Monday morning. And I ran into a Royals player, Kyle Isbell, in there. And it brought back a lot of memories. But yeah, I miss certain aspects of the K. I missed the people that I really cared about there who were really good people. I missed the salad bar, which was phenomenal in the press box. And the dugout and shooting the shit with people, like that was one of the most fun parts of the job. The stadium people, like that's one aspect of this job that like has been fun for me. I try not to take for granted every day when I'm walking into the stadium, the people who work there every day and how much, I mean, like they're out there every day, they're working their butts off and they are putting in the hours and they want to talk ball. And so I love going back and forth with these people. Like there's a guy, Jesse, in the Vikings press box every time. We're up there after every quarter giving each other thoughts about the game. Like that, it's part of what, like the joy of the kid in me that gets to spend time at the football stadium, the ballpark every day that I definitely miss. And the K is a special place with a lot of history. I used to sit up like hours before the game and just watch batting practice and absolutely love doing that. Because at my heart, I think I am just a kid who loves sports, who gets to kind of live a dream in some way. But great question, Ethan. Appreciate you asking. The baseball should be fun. So will joint practices. And I might try to have 2 podcasts to you guys later this week. Maybe Diana Rossini, who's the national at The Athletic, probably have her on from Cleveland. Zach Jackson, who's our Cleveland guy, we might break down some of what we're seeing. So appreciate you guys listening as always. Like we said at the top, like and subscribe if you like hearing my voice for 40 minutes, which you'd be probably some of the first people besides my parents to tell me that you enjoyed that. But it's a blast as always. Never take for granted all you guys listening and asking the questions. And I do enjoy getting to talk a little bit about my non-football covering self because, I have passions way outside of football. It's not something that I kind of stick my head in, keep my head in at all times. I like getting away, watching shows, doing all that stuff. But no, appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back later this week. Check out the writing over at The Athletic. Had some, preseason takeaway type thoughts. So a roster projection for the editors to make them happy. So, appreciate you guys listening. This is the Alec Lewis Show. That was episode 7. You guys have a great week.